Hey guys, what's up? James here from Embark, and today we're going to take a look at the top 10 mental models. A mental model is a framework of how someone thinks a certain thing is in reality. They often shape behaviour and can be used as shortcuts to reasoning. And they're extremely powerful because they can provide you with quick data and understanding of how something is working without having to spend an inordinate amount of time diving into the deep aspects of how it all works. Mental models are also sometimes called razors. This is because they allow you to eliminate or shave off or avoid unnecessary actions. This in turn aids decision making and problem solving by making them more efficient. So let's take a look at some of the most well-known and some of the most useful mental models for me personally. Number 1, OCCAMS razor. The simpler explanations are more likely to be correct over the complicated explanations. So the simpler a explanation is, the less moving parts there are and the less variables that have to go right in order for that explanation to be correct. When there's too many moving parts, guessing how each of those moving parts interacts with each other to get to an explanation, only one thing needs to be off and that whole explanation is off by an order of magnitude. So the less moving parts, the simpler the explanation is, the more likely it is to be the correct one. Occam's razor is attributed to William of Occam, an English friar born in 1287. Despite this, there's many inferences dating back to almost 350 AD with people like Aristotle. He writes in his Posterior Analytics, "We may assume the superiority ceteris paribus of the demonstration which derives from fewer postulates or hypotheses." Number 2, luck razor. If you're struggling between two different options and both have pros and cons, you could use the luck razor. Effectively, you take a guess at which of those two options is going to lead to more luck later down the line. For instance, not sure whether to skip the party that you're invited to and just stay at home. Both options are kind of fine by you, you're not really fussed either way. But if you go to the party, there's more chance for serendipitous interactions, like meeting someone who has a new job opening or potentially meeting a partner to go on a date with. Number 3, the bragging razor. This is a simple one. If someone is bragging in their life, half what they're saying, or think of what they're saying in terms of half. If they're saying they've got a wage of £100,000 a year and a yearly trip to the Maldives, it's more likely to be sort of 50k a year and a trip to Spain. And the inverse works too. If someone's downplaying their success, double it. Working for themselves and they say they only have sort of 4 weeks off a year, more likely that they have 2 months off a year. They got a little promotion at work and they're downplaying it, more likely they got a massive promotion with a huge raise. Number 4, NAVAL'S razor. This is another decision-making razor. You have two options and you can't decide between the two options. You've put them equally matched in terms of pros and cons and everything, and you've said they are equal, but one option is actually the harder option to pick. You should choose that harder option. Why? Because despite it actually being harder, you've matched it equally, right? So if it was as easy as this decision, you would choose it all day. But because it's harder than this decision, you've matched it equally. Therefore, you should choose it. Because although it's the harder option, it's actually the better option. Its hardness, its difficulty is what's brought it down to be equal with this decision. So always choose the harder option if you can't decide between the two. 5, MUNGER'S law, who really popularised mental models over the last 50 years. It's to never allow yourself to have an opinion on something unless you can state the opposite argument better than the opposition can. This is actually called steel manning. You might have heard of straw man. Well, this is steel manning. You literally know the opposition's position better than they do, and therefore you will not be caught out. You can refute everything they say because you know what their arguments are going to be better than they know. Number 6, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Created by Abraham Maslow in his 1943 paper, A Theory of Human Motivation, it depicts a 5-tier hierarchy or pyramid of personal development. Although not based in much science, which Maslow himself accepts as a critique of his hierarchy of needs, it's still a very popular tool used by a lot of people to explain the world around us and how people act in certain ways. So here's the hierarchy. I'll put it on the screen now for you. So at the bottom you have your physiological needs, your air, your water, your food, your shelter, your sleep, your clothing, and only once you have those, because it's a hierarchy, you need this bottom base first. Once you have those physiological needs, once you've obtained those needs, you can move on to the next tier, which is safety needs, personal security, employment, resources, health, property, things like that. Only at that point can you then have friendship, intimacy, family, a sense of connection. One more step up in the hierarchy, you get to esteem, respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. And then finally, self-actualization, desire to become the most that one can be. So effectively, you need the basic needs at the bottom, and then you need to work your way up. And as you work your way up, you get to sort of psychological needs. And then finally, you finish on sort of self-fulfillment needs and those purpose needs. Number 7, HANLON'S razor. So HANLON'S razor proposes something very simple. Never attribute to malice that which can be attributed and explained by stupidity. This stops us from having that pessimistic thought that people are against us and a certain person has done something on purpose and sabotaged this in a certain way. It's most likely not the case. They're just stupid and they didn't realise what they were doing, and that's had an effect on us. That's the most likely answer in that scenario. So effectively, the razor says that stupidity is more common than malice, and that's how you should view the world. 8, second order thinking. This is the idea of understanding what the consequences are to solving a problem with a certain solution. So governments are particularly bad at this, and we see this as an issue in governments all the time, because despite them having access to many advisors, they don't understand the knock-on effects that their policies will have on huge industries. These whole industries have got tons of moving parts that are very complex, always moving, always changing. So how can you expect to put in a policy that's not going to affect something in that industry in some certain way? And they also don't care because they've got no skin in the game. It literally does not affect them if they wreck an industry. So once you start utilising second order thinking, your cognition becomes much clearer. It also helps with decision making, because something might have first order negative consequences but second order positive consequences, of which dramatically outweighs the first order negatives. Therefore, it'd be a good decision to go down that route. Number 9, the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. It describes the unequal distributions in natural and man-made phenomena. People best use the Pareto principle to get 80% of results from 20% of their time. Whether this is with planning, sales, marketing, the most effective people will audit their time and then make sure to dedicate time to the things that produce 80% of the results. Number 10, Hofstadter's law. Everything costs more and takes longer than you expect. A small project like renovating your kitchen might cost twice as much and take 3 times longer than you thought it would. You can try and counter this law with Elon's law, named after Elon Musk and coined by George Mack. This law states that you should set extremely ridiculous timeframes for projects. So even if you miss that project by 2 or 3x, you're still going to be way further ahead than everyone else in the race. So that's it from me, guys. That's just 10 mental models that I think are interesting, that I use a lot in life to understand what's going on. I hope you enjoyed those too. There's plenty more mental models out there, and I go through a ton of them in my ebook, my Leverage ebook, which is free. Link down in the description if you're interested in that. Other than that, I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. We have got videos coming out every single week. I've been James for Embark, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.